The first $10,000 you save is not money. It is proof that your life has stopped leaking. Most people think saving fails because they are weak, undisciplined, underpaid, or unlucky. I think that is the wrong diagnosis. A lot of people do not have an income problem first. They have a firewall problem. Their financial life has no real barrier between desire and action, no distance between temptation and payment, no system between payday and disappearance, so they call themselves bad with money. What they really are is unprotected. I have watched ordinary people work hard, get paid, mean well, and still end the month with almost nothing to show for it. Not because they are stupid, not because they are lazy, because their money lives in an open field. Every AD can reach it, every mood can touch it, every subscription can graze on it, every tired evening can steal from it. That is not a moral failure, that is an exposed system. You do not build wealth by asking your future self to be a saint. You build wealth by making your future self harder to betray. That is the difference. If your entire money life depends on how focused, motivated, and emotionally balanced you feel at 9:30 at night after a long day, you do not have a money plan. You have a wish, and wishes do not survive convenience. They do not survive dopamine. They do not survive one. Click checkout, stored cards, promotional pricing, free trials, app notifications, limited time offers, or the quiet little lie you tell yourself when you say, I deserve this. I am not impressed by a budget that only works when you are in a good mood. I am impressed by a structure that still works when you are bored, hungry, rushed, irritated, and slightly ashamed. That is what I mean by a firewall. A firewall is not just a line item in a spreadsheet. It is a defense system. It is the set of barriers, rules, routes, delays, and routines that stand between your cash flow and your worst impulses. Without that system, every dollar has to fight for its life. With that system, money stops acting like loose water on a kitchen floor and starts moving like capital through controlled pipes. Most people never save their first $10,000 because they keep trying to win a daily knife fight with themselves. I would rather rig the room. I would rather assume something brutally simple. You are not going to make thousands of perfect financial choices every month. Your brain is not built for that. By the time your day is over, your judgment is softer, your resistance is lower, and the part of you that wanted to be prudent at 7 o'clock in the morning is now negotiating with the part of you that wants relief. That negotiation is expensive. You pay it in late-night takeout, impulse purchases, half-used subscriptions, doubled household clutter, forgotten renewals, premium convenience, and all the silent penalties that come from making money decisions in a tired state. I call that the decision fatigue tax. Most people never see it because it does not arrive as one giant invoice. It drips out in 20s, 40s, 90s, click renewals, extra data plans, delivery fees, and little pieces of compensation for the stress they have not dealt with directly. The system does not need you to fail dramatically. It only needs you to leak consistently. That is why I tell people the first $10,000 is not an arithmetic challenge. It is an engineering challenge. You are not just trying to gather money. You are trying to build a machine that lets money remain yours long enough to gather. Most people miss the same hidden enemy from several angles. Temptation, automation, delayed gratification, replacement discipline, cash flow visibility, routine review. These look like separate ideas on the surface. They are not. They are all pieces of one defense system. They all answer the same question. How do you stop your own life from having constant access to your own money? When I look at a household, I do not first ask what they earn. I ask how many open doors they have, how many stored cards, how many invisible renewals, how many emotional spending triggers, how many bills arrive without a route, how many wants get treated like needs, how many numbers they are afraid to look at, how much of their spending is automatic in the wrong direction, and how little of their saving is automatic in the right one. That is the whole story. If spending is frictionless and saving is effortful, the outcome is already decided. You can call yourself ambitious all you want. You can tell yourself next month will be better. You can save $500 in a burst of inspiration and lose $700 in a month of fatigue. That is what happens when your architecture is upside down. The dangerous thing about this kind of financial life is that it looks normal from the outside. You have a card, you have a job, you have a bank app, the bills get paid, but the system underneath is rotten because every dollar is born unassigned and every temptation is pre-approved. I would fix that before I tried to be more heroic. The first wall I would build is what I call a temptation toll. If something keeps taking your money, it should not have free access to you. The principle is older than finance. If you know your future self is going to be seduced by the rocks, then bind him before the music starts. That idea matters because most overspending is not the result of deep analysis. It is the result of low friction availability. The card is saved, the app is open, the offer feels temporary, the purchase seems small. Your future self walks through a door your present self left unlocked. So lock it, delete the stored cards, remove the shopping apps, make the password ugly, put purchases behind extra steps, freeze the card if you must. Use cash envelopes for the categories that repeatedly humiliate you. If your weakness is external, add external friction. Tell a friend what you are trying not to buy. Create a penalty. Put your ego on the line. Human beings hate inconvenience and social embarrassment more than they hate being broke. Use that. A bank does not protect gold by trusting employees to be noble around an open vault. A bank uses doors, codes, delay, and procedure. You should do the same thing with your cash flow. This is not extremism, this is realism. If your spending habits are beating your intentions, then the answer is not better intentions. The answer is more friction. I would rather make a bad purchase annoyingly difficult than spend the next 6 months trying to forgive myself for making it easy. The second wall is more important because it changes the default path. I call it the first claim rule. The people who struggle for years often make the same structural mistake. They let the world claim their money before they do. The paycheck lands, bills, apps, wants, upgrades, convenience, subscriptions, little rewards, all begin to line up. Saving is whatever is left. That is the language of losers. There is almost never anything left. Because modern life is very efficient at finding a use for unclaimed cash money that lands in your account without instructions, does not rest. It gets recruited. That is why automation is not a convenience tool. It is a control tool. Even when people know what they should do, their mental energy degrades through the day. And by the time they must make another prudent choice, they are easier to beat. An automated money system solves that by shifting the decision upstream. It lets you act while you are rational and benefit while you are tired. That is how I would set up almost any ordinary household. The moment income arrives, the first claim should already be waiting. Retirement contributions should already have a route. Savings should already have a route. The account that receives your pay should not be a swamp where all your categories mix together. It should be a command account. Money enters there and is immediately directed into purpose-built lanes. Survival obligations, saving, investing. Spending should not decide the fate of money. Routing should. I like people to think in lanes, not moods. You should know what belongs to the roof over your head, what belongs to tomorrow, what belongs to long-term ownership, and what belongs to your choices. If you are serious, your bills get paid automatically from a system account. Your savings pulls happen on schedule, and your investment transfers happen without waiting for applause from your emotions. You do not wake up each month and rediscover your values. You hard code them. That is what adults do. If your current system requires you to feel inspired every payday, it is not a system, it is a pep talk. The third wall is a cooling chamber. A lot of people think they want the object. Usually they want the anticipation. Their brain is not chasing utility, it is chasing a chemical event. Much of the dopamine arrives before the purchase, not after it. That means many people are spending real money just to complete a feeling that was already peaking in anticipation. That is one of the dumbest trades in modern life. You hand over permanent money for temporary theater. The average person loses thousands a year to impulse spending, and a large share of those purchases end in regret. That is not a spending problem, that is a brain problem being monetized by a payment system. So I would create what I call the not no list. Not no, not never. Not forbidden forever. Just not now. The moment something starts glowing in your mind, you write it down, you put it on the list, you give your brain enough recognition to cool down. Then you force time into the equation. 30 days is excellent because time is the great destroyer of fake desire. Half the things people swear they need this week will embarrass them by the second week and disappear by the fourth. That is not deprivation. That is truth recovery. You do not need every urge to be wrong. You only need time to expose the weak ones. A firewall that cannot delay cannot defend. Delay is not passive. Delay is diagnostic. It tells you whether the purchase is a tool, a replacement, a real value add, or just a mood-wearing expensive clothes. The fourth wall is what I call the replacement gate. Most households do not have a money leak. They have an object leak. New things come in, old things stay, categories duplicate, storage expands, maintenance expands, and spending gets rationalized because each purchase looks small in isolation. Buy when you must replace, not when you want novelty. If something truly needs replacing because it is broken, worn out, or no longer fits your life, then replace it deliberately. Prefer used quality over new mediocrity when possible. And when the new item comes in, the old one goes out. That rule does more than save money. It protects identity. A lot of people are not actually shopping for utility. They are shopping for a newer version of themselves. That is where the blood starts. You begin with a coat, a gadget, a kitchen appliance, a better desk, a storage bin for the old things, a better organizer for the clutter, and soon you are financing a fantasy self while the real self is still trying to build an emergency fund. I have no objection to quality. I have every objection to self. Deception, if you have lived without an object just fine up to now, there is a good chance it is not a need. It may be amusement. It may be curiosity. It may be a boredom purchase. Those are expensive categories when they are disguised as necessity. A replacement gate restores honesty. It asks the simple question, what exact problem is this solving, and what leaves if this comes in? The fifth wall is visibility. You cannot defend what you refuse to measure. One reason people feel constantly behind is that they do not know the four numbers that actually run their life. The labels can vary, but the structure should not. First, what actually hits your account after taxes, not fantasy salary, not gross pay, real take-home cash. Second, what it costs to survive, housing, utilities, food, transport, insurance, baseline obligations. Third, what you choose to spend to feel more comfortable, entertained, upgraded, or socially normal. Fourth, what actually compounds for your future, your savings and investing line. You need one visual of the territory because people who do not know their terrain always feel lost, and usually are. I call that last number the compound lane. That is the number that tells me whether your financial life is moving forward or simply spinning with excellent branding. Some people earn decent money and still have a weak compound lane because their comfort bucket has swollen into a second survival bucket. Other people do not feel rich, but they are becoming strong because their compound lane is alive every month. This is why I tell people that financial confidence does not come from seeing a bigger paycheck. It comes from knowing the route each dollar takes after it arrives. Confusion is expensive, clarity compounds. If you do not have a money map, you will keep asking emotional questions about mathematical problems. Can I afford this? Why am I always behind? Where did it go? Why does saving feel impossible? A map quiets drama. It turns fog into territory. Then you can do what rational people do. You adjust the routes, not the excuses. The sixth wall is maintenance. Every system grows weeds. That is why quarterly audits matter so much. People think they know what they are paying for, but when guesses get compared to reality, subscription spending is often far higher than expected. That is a classic open-door leak. You are not making an active decision to waste money. You are simply failing to challenge a recurring claim on your income. This is one of the softest ways households bleed. Promotional pricing rolls over, trial periods expire, a service stops being useful but keeps drafting. A bank fee appears, a random charge slides through, a card annual fee lands, a data plan is richer than your real usage. Fraud hides in a sea of other line items. None of these kill you alone. Together, they form what I call subscription moss. It grows slowly, quietly, and mostly on surfaces you stopped looking at. So every quarter I would drag the statements into the light. I would export the last few months. I would scan recurring charges. I would challenge everything that no longer earns its place. I would negotiate what can be negotiated. I would ask for fee reversals. I would cut the dead branches. People are often shocked by how much money can be recovered just by paying attention after the fact. That should not shock you. Most systems are defended better on the front end than on the back end. Companies know people are distracted. Do not pay an attention tax to businesses that are counting on your fatigue. The seventh wall is the smallest and, over time, one of the most powerful. I call it the brainless anchor. One reason new money habits fail is that people try to install them in empty air. They say they will remember. They say they will start tomorrow. They say every night after dinner they will review spending, move money, check bills, track progress. But habits that float without an anchor usually die. Attach the money behavior to something your body already does with almost no thought. Coffee, brushing teeth, feeding the cat, sitting in the train before work, whatever repeats. Then the new behavior no longer needs a heroic launch. It hitches a ride while the coffee brews check yesterday's spending. When you brush your teeth at night, review tomorrow, obligations. When Friday lunch ends, move money into savings, 30 seconds here, 40 seconds there. It sounds small until you understand what is really happening. You are turning awareness into routine. You are taking a task that used to feel like financial homework and welding it to an action. Your nervous system already trusts. That is how adults beat complexity. Not with more intensity, with repetition in the right place. Now let me tell you why all of this matters for the first $10,000. A lot of people hear that number and think of it as a simple goal. I do not. I think of it as the first serious layer of civilian armor before that line. Every inconvenience is personal. A car repair is panic, a deductible is humiliation, a job wobble is a threat, a surprise flight, a dental bill, a moved rent payment, a higher grocery month. All of it gets processed through stress because you do not yet have enough stored margin between your life and the next hit. The first $10,000 changes your nervous system because it changes your options. That is why I never treat saving like a cute challenge. I treat it like a strategic campaign. And this is where the firewall becomes measurable. Once you build friction, automate the first claim, delay false wants, buy by replacement, map the routes, audit the weeds, and anchor awareness to routine, you stop needing miracles. The leaks shrink, the defaults improve, the leftover money gets stronger because it is no longer constantly being ambushed. Saving stops feeling like squeezing water from stone and starts feeling like controlling flow. That is the shift most people never experience. They think wealth builders are simply more disciplined. Often they are just less exposed. Look at the arithmetic. If impulse spending is costing thousands a year, if recurring charges are larger than people realize, if convenience is replacing planning, if every purchase still gets made at peak desire instead of after delay, then the first $10,000 is not far away in theory. It is simply trapped on the wrong side of your own behavior. The point is not that you will save $10,000 by one giant act of austerity. The point is that once the system stops fighting you, 10,000 stops being a fantasy number and becomes the natural output of a defended cash flow structure. That is how I want you to think. Not sacrifice first, architecture first. The people who fail repeatedly often keep making the same emotional error. They decide they are going to be stricter. They punish themselves. They cut joy, then binge later. They chase perfect months. They fall off, they restart, they live inside a shame loop. That loop is profitable for every company selling convenience, stimulation, status, and relief. It is terrible for you. I would break that loop with design. I would say, fine, you are human. Fine, you get tired. Fine, you want things. Fine, your brain likes anticipation and easy payment. Fine, your attention is not perfect and your day is noisy. I accept all of that. Now let me build a system that assumes it. Let me place walls where temptation enters. Let me make saving the default path. Let me delay desire until the fever breaks. Let me measure the territory. Let me clean the leaks on schedule. Let me attach awareness to actions that already happen. That is how serious people operate. You are not trying to become a different species. You are trying to stop living in an undefended house. There is also a deeper point here, one that almost nobody talks about when discussing savings. Every dollar you keep is not just a dollar. It is a vote for who controls your life spend. First systems create dependency. They create households where every paycheck is already spoken for. Every surprise becomes leverage for somebody else. And every opportunity has to be declined because there is no reserve to support movement save. First systems create refusal power. The power to say no to a bad job, no to a predatory loan, no to panic selling, no to every upgrade that tries to present itself as dignity. I like dignity, but I prefer control. And control begins long before investing becomes interesting. It begins when you can hold cash without feeling compelled to release it. It begins when you can see your own numbers without flinching. It begins when your system is strong enough that you are not asking every week where the money went. That is why I am so hard on the phrase "I am trying to save money." Trying is weak language. I want to know the route. I want to know the barriers. I want to know the delay. I want to know the automatic transfer date. I want to know the replacement rule. I want to know the audit calendar. I want to know the anchor habit. If you cannot describe the machine, you do not yet have one. You have an intention wearing a costume, and intentions do not compound. Systems do. The moment your first $10,000 arrives, people will think the victory is the balance. I think the real victory is the behavior that made the balance possible, because the person who can hold $10,000 did not merely earn it. That person learned to shut doors. That person learned to route money before emotion could reach it. That person learned to separate desire from decision. That person learned to see the silent claims on income. That person learned that convenience is often just expensive weakness dressed as efficiency. That person learned that no amount of earning power can outrun a defenseless structure. That person is dangerous in the best possible way because once a real firewall exists, the next 10,000 is easier than the first. Then investing has something to work with. Then compounding has fuel. Then emergencies stop being identity events. Then you stop living at the mercy of every tiny fluctuation in modern life. I have spent enough time around money to know this. The market can reward intelligence, patience, and ownership, but before any of that matters, your own daily system has to stop sabotaging you. There is no point studying wealth if your cash flow keeps slipping out through convenience, impulse, and drift. The first battle is not out there. It is in the structure of your ordinary week. That is where fortunes are quietly delayed or quietly born. So here is the test. If I looked at your life today, would I find a firewall or a hallway? Would I find barriers between temptation and payment? Or would I find a wide open route from feeling to spending? Would I find an automatic first claim on your income? Or would I find hope waiting for leftovers? Would I find a cooling chamber for false wants, a replacement gate for objects, a map for cash flow, an audit calendar for leaks, and an anchor for awareness? Or would I find a smart, hardworking person living in a beautifully branded financial ambush? That is the choice in front of you. Not whether you want to be better with money, whether you are finally willing to stop leaving your money undefended. Because the first $10,000 is not asking whether you are inspired. It is asking whether you are serious. If you are, then start acting like a builder, not a beggar. Shut one door today. Route one transfer today. Create one delay today. Cancel one leak today. Review one statement today. Attach one money habit to one brainless routine today. Do not wait for a perfect month. Do not wait for more motivation. Do not wait until the next paycheck gives you another chance to repeat the same structure. Build the firewall. Then watch how quickly your life stops burning.